Joshua Snyder, Joshua Snyder, Joshua Snyder, Joshua 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 Joshua
All right, another day, another Josh cast. I'm playing with how I record this because I've been screaming into the mic too much, and the plosives are not coming off good. It's too powerful. That's because I'm not recording this on equipment I should be recording it on, basically. And I just burped. There you go. I didn't actively burp into the mic. I was trying to spare you. I'm lonely. I am lonely. You know, every night before I go to bed, or actually when I'm getting into bed, I fantasize that I'm in a relationship. And it's peculiar because, you know, the fantasy that, what I'm fantasizing, the implication of the fantasy is that the relationship is functional. And that's why it's called a fantasy. And I think that's a problem because I'm wanting too much to find a fantasy. And I'm too in love with the fantasy of what a relationship is as opposed to the reality of what a relationship is. And the more that I can accept that a relationship has its ups and downs and, you know, things are not always great 7 days a week, the more that I can accept that, the more that I can transition from being miserable and alone to miserable in a relationship. And then when I'm miserable in the relationship, I can pine for the days when I was miserable and alone. And then I die and, you know, we call it a day. I feel like Chris Rock has basically covered what I just said, but with jokes. Here's the other thing about my fantasies that's strange. In the fantasy, when I'm fantasizing about what this relationship is, there are always details, but the two of us are coming together in the fantasy. Something horrible has just happened, and the two of us are coming together as part of a shared trauma. And there's a lot of like my fantasy involves, you know, it's not like lustful, passionate sex. It's oh my God, I just survived war, and I need to recover from the trauma of war, and she's there to help me with that. It's that kind of sex, really. It's a narrative that it's kind of like, it's a similar kind of trajectory to the main character in Legend of Bagger Vance, where he was haunted by war, and he, you know, through golf and through talking with Will Smith, was able to kind of come to terms with that. It's kind of like, my fantasies are kind of like that, but with 0% golf. Golf and my fantasies do not intertwine, interconnect in any way whatsoever. I've never been. No, that would never happen. Golf was an incredibly frustrating sport. I took golf lessons when I was younger, and I just got to stand in between people at the driving range who could hit the ball straight, and I hit the ball much like my sexuality, much more it was a bisexual hit. That's how I hit the ball. There was a curve to it. It was not a perfect straight thing. Not to say, by the way, that heterosexuals are perfect, or that heterosexuality is perfect. I did not mean that. I'm talking more perfect in the sense of it was, you know, they said the ball, they wanted the ball went where they wanted the ball to go. The ball did not go where I wanted it to go. It went in a different place. which oddly, now that I talk about it, is kind of does parallel my own sexuality. My sexuality did not go where I wanted it to go. My sexuality, much like my golf game, is going in its own direction. So actually, now that I think about it, golf has taught me a lot about my sexuality. I don't play. It's frustrated and I don't play. Golf is like, sexuality for me is like golf. Why bother? I'm throwing away the clubs. Good. Mucus. Perfect for a podcast. Another thing, too, is that, and I hate dating because dating, it doesn't feel like a date when I'm on a first date with someone. It feels like a trial. And then I got this wonderful idea. When I'm in a courtroom, I don't represent myself. Someone is there to represent me. I wish that I, on a first date, could have an attorney. A really, really solid attorney who could do all the speaking for me and really present my case. No. He's worth dating. What he lacks in his ability in the bedroom, he makes up for in his ability to either be or at least fake compassion. That's what I think that would be phenomenal. And then she, of course, would have her attorney, and her attorney would, cross-examine or, do the opposing argument and say, well, let's look at his financials. What is his aspiration? To be a comedian? Really? All right. And what kind of routine does he have? What's happening right now, this is an example of one of his routines, which is why you should not date him. And then my lawyer would say, objection, Your Honor, circumstantial. This bit isn't finished yet. And the judge would say, I'll allow it for now. Another thing, here's the other weird thing about dating is that I feel like, and this is something my mom told me, and I agree with, I feel like I'm in two worlds. Because, back in my early 20s, back in college, I don't think people were online dating at all. And then, over the course of the next 10 years, online dating became the norm. So there are people now who the next generation who's starting to date, not like for them, online dating is normal. But I remember a time when there was no online dating. I mean, there wasn't any online dating in high school. And so online dating still feels foreign to me, even though I am built for online dating. I'm perfect for online dating. I am why online dating is a thing. They were probably studying me from afar, going, he's perfect for online dating. We should model it after that guy. But I do feel like I'm in two different worlds, and that it has to be like, certainly like pre-COVID, post-COVID. It's interesting how, anyone born in this or any young children, and, to them, this is just normal. Imagine what it might be like if suddenly we lose the internet and then people have to go back to pre-internet dating, which I believe was called being in a civilization. But it's that notion of being in two worlds. That's what's hard about it, is that there's still a part of me that's like, oh, this internet dating, it's a phase, it'll pass. It's ridiculous. Like it's almost like, even though everyone is online dating now, because I come from the time where it was new, and at first only, very, well, for lack of a better term, nerdy people were the ones dating. So if I were to even try online dating, there's still a part of me that expects at any moment a high school bully to come in and go, nerd! And the reality is, what would be the high school bully, they're all online dating. They're probably, probably more realistically, if I go into a bar, that's now I'm the nerd for going into the bar. Oh, you're you're dating an analog? What are you? What? So that's how things are going right now. That's where I'm at this point. And I think the other thing too, somebody told me that's very haunting. They told me that, you don't want to end up alone when you get older, because then there will be no one there to take care of you. And that thought is, creeping into my mind, that there will be no one there to help me. And that, it's going to get to the point, is it dating? Am I going on a date, or am I really shopping for healthcare? And I tell the woman, listen, if you don't want to have sex, whatever, can you lift me into a tub? That's what I need. The Neverending Story, a movie that came out in the 80s, was actually based on a novel. And as it so happens, there was a hidden early draft of the novel that was recently unearthed. I'd like to actually share a quick passage from it. It's interesting. The book would have taken a drastically different direction if this is what the author went with. And I don't know. I think it's good that he didn't go with this, but I'll get your opinion on it. It picks up basically towards the end of the first novel, which would also align with approximately the climax of the first movie. The childlike empress stood atop the ivory tower. All of Fantasia had been consumed by the nothing. Fantasia is crumbling, she said. The hopes and dreams of humans are growing faint. If only we could find a human to journey here and use his imagination to recreate the fantastic wonders of our land. I'll do it, came a voice from the darkness. A large figure stepped into the light. It was none other than Ernest Hemingway. How did you get in here? The childlike empress asked. Stairs. Okay, then. Well, use this Orin to rebuild the mystical land of Fantasia, a land full of rock monsters, speed snails, luck dragons, and dos cervezas, Hemingway said. A waiter suddenly appeared with 2 beers. I don't drink, the childlike empress said. I know, Hemingway replied, taking both beers. I need a gun. A gun suddenly appeared in his hand. I need Orson Welles. Orson Welles suddenly appeared before him. He shot Orson Welles. I don't need the gun now. The waiter took the gun away. Well, the childlike empress began, shall we set about creating the Sea of Hope or the Gilded Mountains of Joy? I'm going to need a stadium for the bullfights. What's a bullfight? A man fights a bull and kills the bull, and it's good. That doesn't sound good, the childlike empress sighed. I'm a little worried about the creative direction of this never-ending story. Are you sure you're in the right genre? Atreyu suddenly appeared. I don't feel so good, he said. His manhood was blown off in the war. What war? You mean he doesn't have... He's like 10 years old. I need a shotgun. Don't give him a shotgun. Oren, don't give him a shotgun. Suddenly a shotgun appeared in his hand. He promptly pointed it in the air and shot Falcor. You shot a luck dragon. He's not a luck dragon. Yes, he is. Then why did I just shoot him? I can't argue that point. Look, you seem very nice in a tortured sort of way, but I just think maybe this isn't the right story for you. And then the rest of this chapter basically involves both characters looking out a window, even though they're standing on top of a tower, and they're just contemplating the plains. Interesting. It's an interesting take. I don't know if it would have worked quite as well as what... I'm glad that the author went with the direction he went. especially after reading it out loud. I'd like to end the podcast actually by reciting a poem by Walt Whitman that I love. And actually, they just discovered that this poem actually had a second part that I guess he cut out, but they found the second part. And so I'm actually going to read you the entire poem now by Walt Whitman with this new second part that has now recently been discovered. When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I, sitting, heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause in the lecture room, how soon unaccountable I became, tired and sick, till, rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. And then, at that moment, this guy named Bob walked up right next to me. And he asked if I was doing anything. And I wanted to say I'm looking in perfect silence at the stars, but I didn't want to come off as impolite. So I said, no, I'm not doing anything. And then Bob proceeded to tell me how nice the stars looked. And I said, yes, they look very nice. They look very nice. And then he said, I'm in town from Ohio on business. And I said, oh, that's interesting. That's nice. And I tried to really put a period at the end of that's nice and to try to say without saying that I just really didn't want to talk to Bob. But Bob just kept going. He kept saying, I'm on business and I miss my wife. She makes a really, really good quiche. Have you had quiche before? And I said, I wanted to say, of course I've had quiche before. Who hasn't had quiche before? But I didn't. I said, I have it occasionally. And Bob said, I really wish you could try some of my wife's quiche. I really miss my wife. I really miss my wife. I hate her, and I miss my wife. And I suddenly said, wait, you said you hate her and you miss her. How is that possible? And Bob said, that's the thing about love sometimes. You hate someone and you love them at the same time. And both are happening right now. Like I'm glad I'm away from her, but at the same time, I really miss her. And it's, it's tough, man. It's just tough. And I said, no, I get that. I really do get that. And then I was kind of irritated with myself that I allowed myself to be interested in his situation with his wife. And suddenly I realized the whole point of me coming out here was to look in perfect silence at the stars. And there was no perfect silence in the stars. And so I finally said, you know what? And I tried to be as polite as possible. I said, listen, Bob, I could talk more, but I really need to take a moment alone and stare in perfect silence at the stars. So if you don't mind, I just need to have a moment by myself. And Bob said, no, I get it. I totally get it. I understand. And I could tell that I offended Bob, and I heard it, and he probably needed someone to listen to, and I didn't want to listen to him, and so he walked off, and I thought to myself, well, God, what if he kills himself now because I didn't just take 2 extra minutes out of my life to just listen to what he had to say. And I tried to stare in perfect silence at the stars, but now all I was thinking about was Bob and something's going on with his wife, something that's not good, something not good. And now I just, God, I don't know. I don't care about the stars. I don't care about the stars. Why can't I find love? Why can't I find love? And that was the end of the poem. So Walt Whitman, When I Heard the Learned Astronomer. It's a really great poem. I kind of understand why I cut that second part out. But there you go. That's the end of the podcast. This is the end end of the podcast. The end of the podcast. I hope you liked the podcast. I hope you liked the podcast. Now go out there and watch Babylon 5. It's written by J. Michael Straczynski. 'Cause the more people watch this awesome show, the more chances that there will be to have a reboot. Also written by J. Michael Straczynski. So go out there and watch Babylon 5 and listen to my podcast, which will come on in a couple of days again. Or there it is. I feel better.